Mark it well that that first Christmas came along, there was nobody ready but God. I want you to go back in your memory bank and think about some unexpected arrivals in your life, just how unexpected they were. And if they were that unexpected, you really weren't all that pleased about it, were you? Today we begin a series, obviously a 4-week series that surrounds the whole issue of unwrapping God's gift at Christmas time. And today we talk about unexpected arrivals. World War II stories are oftentimes too old for people to have perspective, but with 9/11 and all the things that have gone on since then, certainly we have a reference point. I always think of the story of the 3-year-old child, a true story, where in World War II, the child was one of those situations where the mother was pregnant before he left for the war and the child was born and had grown up until the age of 3. But during that time, before he saw his father, who came back home from the war, he often had a ritual at night that he would go through. And the ritual would have him come to say his prayers. He would run across the room, kiss his father's picture, and then he would return to his bed for the evening sleep. Sure enough, once his dad came home, they were joyous and they were getting to have their prayers together. And without question, without thought, the young man ran across, instead of kissing his dad, ran across, kissed the picture, and then went on to bed. Something like that happens every Christmas, I think. We keep the traditions of Christmas. We walk into the room that has been decorated by our folks, and we take that first breath of the season, and we think, thank God we're here. And too many of us fill our calendars up, and it's almost like kissing the picture, but never receiving Christ as the living presence that he is. And so today, as we approach this table, which, by the way, is the Lord's table, and any of you who know Christ as Lord in your life, we offer this table for your participation. And so as we wrap the whole event today around unexpected arrivals in our life, my hope is Christ will not be an unexpected arrival in your life this Christmas. There are 2 verses that I won't have you go to them right now, but there are 2 verses that you'll find in the first chapter of John that kind of give us 2 stakes in the ground, if you would, to talk about what we're talking about. He was in the world, and the world was made through him. And the sad part is, yet the world knew him not. And just a couple of verses down, John 1:12, but to all who've received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God. So it is in those parameters that we want to walk today for the rest of our time. The story of Christmas plays in Joseph's life in a way that I often admire. I will tell you that if you ask me what character in the story that I most like, you'll almost always find my answer to be Joseph. For lots of reasons, and we're going to be discussing those throughout this series, but certainly one that I think reminds you of how easy it is for Joseph not to be noticed. Matter of fact, the office at a church one day received a call that for the play that night, the little Joseph, the boy that was playing little Joseph, that he was sick. Well, they said, no problem, we'll just write his lines right out of that play. He almost is that easy not to notice unless you really focus on the story. The story of Joseph is mentioned only in 2 chapters of Matthew and Luke, outside of the genealogical references that you'll find. So you don't see him that much. No wonder we tend to push him away. But the Christmas story, we need to remember Joseph for several reasons. First of all, God spoke to him about him 4 different times. And 4 of those times were incredibly important. 4 times. God spoke about him 4 times. Secondly, God spoke to him in dreams. There are 2 kinds of dreams. There are the dreams that are the sleepy dreams, and then there are the dreams that are the sleepless dreams. You know, the ones that keep you up. And for those of us who've been praying through these 40 days, we haven't reached our 40 days, but this is week 3, the 3rd week guide. I offer them to you as you leave today. They're on the outside foyer. For those of us who've been praying through this, there are lots of prayers that we've been praying that cause us to think the impossible. What is it that God is doing in us and through us? And if you've been praying both for yourself and for the church, then you will find that God is going to be stirring in you the sleepless kind of dream, if you would. And thirdly, Joseph responded to the word that God spoke. And why not read those words that we've read every year, it seems like, for the number of years that you've been in and around church? It's Matthew 1, chapter 18 through 25. And now the birth of Jesus Christ was as follows. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child by the Holy Spirit. Joseph, her husband, being a righteous man and not wanting to disgrace her, desired to put her away secretly. But when he had considered this, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid, take Mary as your wife, for that which has been conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. And she will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for it is he who will save his people from their sins. And now all this took place, that what was spoken by the Lord through the prophet might be fulfilled, saying, Behold, the virgin shall be with child, and shall bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. And Joseph arose from his sleep and did as the angel of the Lord commanded him, and took her as his wife and kept her as a virgin until she gave birth to the son, and he called his name Jesus. You see, the message of the first dream is that God comes in unexpected ways to unexpected people with unexpected results. And there's not any better news that you'll hear today than that. That God comes in unexpected ways to unexpected people with incredibly unexpected results. So if you're following along with your outline, number one is God comes in unexpected ways. Let me give you a definition of dream. Dream is a succession of images, thoughts, or emotions passing through the mind during sleep. But if you look at the German derivative of the word to dream, you'll find out that it was a skeptical, that dreams were seen as skeptical. Dreamers and dreams were seen as skeptical. It literally meant, the derivative meant to deceive. Shakespeare even calls dreams the children of an idle brain, begot of nothing but of vain fantasy. And even one of our Old Testament writers, Jeremiah, said, Speak prophecy, speak truth, speak reality, but leave your dreams at home, for they are like the chaff when compared to the wheat. Well, let me give you a quick 1-minute overview of what dreams are, how dreams are perceived in the Bible. If you go back to the old patriarchs, especially Joseph, the Old Testament Joseph, they were building a new life through Joseph's dreams and God's chosen people. If you look at Daniel in the Old Testament, God spoke to him through dreams as he envisioned a new world and the destiny of that new world. And then there is Joseph, who could have come in a more unexpected way, at least in his life. Christ, God, could not have come in a more unexpected way in his life, and it began in a dream, and it began to change his life. Let me go back to you and remind you, this church began in a dream. Last weekend, we spent all weekend in a dawnings conference, 3 of our leaders, dreaming about our dream, thinking about our dream, processing what God is going to do. For these 40 days, my hope and my prayer is that you will do 2 things, that you will pray to God consistently. I've set my watch for 7:14 in the morning and 7:14 at night, and each one of those, 2 Chronicles 7:14, I have prayed that prayer as close to that time as possible. God's dreaming some dreams. God's dreams are different from our dreams in 2 ways. They always speak of a new thing. Whenever you contact any reference point to a dream related to God, it is always in reference to something new. God wants to dream something new in you. And I don't know about you, but I want God-breathed dreams to impact my life. And secondly, God's kind of dreams are always destiny. They're always related to a reality. They're real, and they have a sense of destiny to them. Now, for those of you who've never quite understood this whole betrothal thing that we talked about in Scripture just a moment ago, let me give you just a quick overview of the Jewish marriage the religious procedure for marriage. First of all, there is engagement. Engagement took place before either of the parties really knew each other. Do you know the whole situation where a Jewish marriage oftentimes made the children, the connection was made by parents or a matchmaker? If you ever seen the play Fiddler on the Roof, you will understand that, because matchmaker was involved in putting them together. Now, the betrothal is where it gets serious, though. That's a one-year duration that's ratified really by a previous commitment that they made on your behalf. It has now become very real, and from this moment on, when you are betrothed, it is legal, it is binding, and it is, you have to break that, you have to actually get a divorce. That's correct. Then the consummation, Mary would become and live with Joseph. Now Joseph, mark it down, was a real man, a righteous man, and he was a trusting man, or he could have done none of this. But what I've also learned is that partial knowledge of the future is always going to be enough if you know that God has full knowledge. I don't have to know about our future in order to believe in our future. I don't have to know about my future in order to believe in my future, because I have this faith that's undergirding everything that I do and live and experience, that I don't have to have an understanding of it for it to take place. When God unexpectedly comes into your life, you will find a way to move from embarrassment to holiness. And that's what we see in Joseph's life. It was incredibly embarrassing for him to experience what he experienced. But there have been incredibly embarrassing moments in my life that God has taken that moment of embarrassment and led me to a point of holiness. How many times can I list the ways? Think of the embarrassments of your life and how in those embarrassments God has given you a sense of his holiness. When we were at the retreat last week, a man was praying, a man that I knew, and I knew as he was developing his prayer that he was leading to something that I was thinking about, and he actually ended up saying, and it is something I learned in this church when I was probably about 18 years old. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know who holds the future. I don't know if it was Bill Turner that said that, but all I know is that I knew that. Let me take you back to a way in which God has come to me in unexpected ways, and we'll blend this into the second point, and that is God comes in unexpected people. Who could have imagined that that night on Highway 71 going to Louisville, that through a car accident, near a car accident, and through a very emotional moment for me, I came face to face with my reality, and it was a sense of embarrassment. Here I had put my car together to impress my girlfriend, and here it was resting on the ground with the tire underneath. You've known that story. I don't want to reiterate all that now. But it was out of that embarrassment that God led me to a strong sense of his presence and his holiness. And of course, it bleeds into the next one, and for many of you, you know that. God comes also in unexpected people. This past week, I'm heading over to see someone in the hospital, and it's later in the afternoon. I haven't eaten lunch, so I said, where can I grab a quick sandwich? And I stop and go to a place called the Sandwich Block, and I only regularly go there once a week, and that's on my off day, and after I've worked out, I go there to eat. So those people have never seen me without my workout clothes and a hat on, to be honest with you. So when I came in with a tie, the four of them fainted, and then the other three began performing oxygen, on them. But when I walked in and made my way with my car around, I bumped right into two people I literally had not seen for 25 years. 25 years. We knew that because First Baptist Newport celebrated their 200th last year, and I saw them at the 175th. And they were very, very important people to me. There were people that had encouraged me as a youth minister, and they had just come back from Atlanta seeing Tom Conley, who was another one of those people who was an unexpected encouragement in my life. And I could take the list. How many of you could take unexpected people in your life who have in fact been God to you? You know my list. It includes Doris Howard and Miss Jerry and Mrs. Benson, who none of you will probably know. And this family that I mentioned, granted, get this, their name's Adams, and so I used to always call them the Adams family. They loved me for doing that, I'm sure. What was the unexpected thing that happened at the first Christmas? Not the announcement that Jesus was coming, the Messiah, because everybody believed that the Messiah was coming, but rather the way in that he came through a teenage girl and an unknown carpenter. The point of this Christmas dream is that the most important thing in the world can happen to the least important people in the world. Do you still understand how powerful that is? You do not have to be important to be important in God's presence. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who suffered a horrible death in an imprisoned camp, said Christ is among us as we gather together, even with all of our difference. And it is when we gather together that we frequently discover Christ through other people. How many times have I said to folks, come to church, God will do something. There's something powerful in our gathering together. There is something that happens when we gather together that's different if we don't gather together. Unexpected things happen, and I invite you to that today. Thirdly, and probably most importantly, is that God comes in unexpected ways to unexpected people with unexpected results. Think of Joseph. Had not done a thing to warrant the coming of the Christ child. He hadn't done a thing to warrant that. I hadn't done a thing when Christ came into my life. But suddenly, the angel said, if you take Mary, you will get the Christ child. Let me ask you, how many of us have found Christ through some ordinary, unexpected person? And because of that, Christ's results in your life have been absolutely amazing. Or maybe you're here and that unexpected person has come to you in unexpected ways, but you're not completely satisfied with how God is moving in your life. And so this Christmas, you're going to make things different. One of the most amazing, surprising, unexpected things about the human experience is that people who know their own weakness, people who know their own limitations and their helplessness and their powerlessness are almost always the ones that are strongest in the Lord. And so how much does it matter? How much does it matter that you feel insignificant or unworthy? Because in fact, you are incredibly valuable. Now, not according to the world's standards, you know. I remember hearing the story of the old farmer who bought a plot of undeveloped land, and he worked for weeks to make it this beautiful flower garden, and he uprooted stumps and pulled weeds, and there his flowers were in bloom, and he invited the pastor to come by and see this marvelous thing, this marvelous garden that he had been working on. And the impressed minister said, "What a beautiful example of God's creation," to which the farmer grinned and replied, "Preacher, you should have seen it when God had it all to himself." But let me remind you, I did a little study this week. Did you deserve the physical health and the capabilities that you have today? You say, well, some of us are very limited. Let me tell you what. Your body is made of 100 trillion cells, of which 300 billion die every minute. Your brain possesses 100 billion nerve cells. Each square inch of your skin contains 20 feet of blood vessels placed end to end. And your body's blood vessels would measure, get this, connect them together, and they would measure 62,000 miles. And that same square inch of skin has an average of 32 million bacteria on it. How many of you are itching right now? And every year, 98% of the atoms in your body are replaced. And when you sneeze, get this, I sneezed about 7 times in a row last night. When you sneeze, all of your bodily functions stop, including your heart. Now, who in the world designed or created something with the physical capabilities to do all that? Oh, it just kind of happened one day, didn't it? Sure. I have mentioned this story to you, but there's never a Christmas goes by that I don't think of it again. I think I've written it. I've never told it. I remember it well. My wife asked me to do what was very threatening to those of us who are MDMs. Those are people that mechanically dysfunctional males. She noticed this round object protruding from a fluorescent light, and all those of you who are really mechanical know exactly what that is. It was protruding from the light, and she said, well, it's not working right. And I said, well, I'll take that whatchamacallit, and I'll take care of it. I was really reaching. But I wanted to impress her at the time, so I took the whatchamacallit, and I went to that place that I really never enjoy going to. You've been there before. It's that store. It's the one that all of us who are not very mechanically dysfunctional do not like going in, because they have these pumpkin-colored vests on, and they prance around like cheery little, well, I call them elves of empowerment. You can do anything. You can do anything if you'll just let us know. We have every part. We have every tool, everything you'll need. We're little elves of empowerment. Well, I brought my whatchamacallit in that day, and I gave it to one of them, and I said, can you help me? And I felt like the more I say, the more I will reveal my ignorance. So I just said, can you help me? So they took this little thing, this little whatchamacallit, it had a little number on it, and they said, sure, we can help you. And so they took me down an aisle, and sure enough, they said, here, you'll find it in here. I would have rather he found it for me. But nevertheless, I was willing to take my chances. So I searched through, and I found the same numbers on that whatchamacallit that was on the whatchamacallit that I brought in. And so I'm feeling proud, wanting to beat my chest, and I'm making my way to the front of the store when one of those little elves of empowerment walks up again with his orange thing on, and I said, can you make sure that this is right? And of course, he read it, and he said, yes, sir. I don't know about you, but I felt when I was walking through the line that I was graduating from life, a new place in my life, because I had finally done something like that. I went home, put that in, the whatchamacallit worked, and all was well at our home. Now, I tell you that story because I love the possibility of being something more than I am. Every time I do something that God smiles on, every time I'm able to have a better attitude about someone or something, every time a situation in my life changes because I changed more than the situation changed, every time I see God's possibility becoming a reality in my life, I get really excited. Joseph did not speak a word in the Christmas story, but his unexpected action spoke volumes. Now mark it well. God said in a dream, take Mary to be your wife, take her to your home and into your heart, not because she needs a husband, because she has the Christ. And mark it well that Joseph obeyed the Christmas dream. He took Jesus into his home and into his heart. I want you to make sure you've done the same. Don't go another minute, another day toward Christmas without taking claim of Christ for you. And if you have, we invite you to the celebration of this table. Because at this table, whereas these are symbols of the body and the blood of Christ, they symbolize an ultimate reality in our life, and that is that Christ has forever changed us and made us and remade us in unexpected people, in unexpected ways, with incredibly unexpected results.